Welcome along to Tweet Street Scotland Occupied, home of the satirical saltire. I'm Cinnamon Bridges, aka Peter. So tonight I've not got any co-host ways. I've got 4 Alba candidates who are running in Aberdeen in different wards. We've got Charlie. Is it Abel or Abel?
Abel, like
Abel.
anybody.
Nice to meet you, Charlie. How you doing?
Hi, good like. How are you doing?
Good. We've also got David Maitland. Hi, David. How you doing? Nice to meet you.
Hi, good evening, and thanks very much for the invite. It's a great pleasure to be here.
Oh, you're welcome. We've got somebody that's returning, is back that much, he could be a co-host. We've got young Alba Youth member, Robert Reid. Hi, Robert, how you doing?
Hi, not bad, thanks.
Aye, good to see you, mate. And we've also got Brian Allen, who's running for councillor also in Aberdeen. So, Brian, how you doing, mate? You all right?
Yeah, I'm fine. It's getting really busy, but I'm coping.
Aye, well, we're going to find out a wee bit more about each of these as we go through some questions about the ward in which you run in, about you in particular, and just why you chose to run for Alba, right? So what we'll do is we'll just change the view of the now, and we'll come over to Charlie first. So, Charlie, just introduce yourself. Tell us a bit about you, why you chose to run for council, and why specifically you chose to run for Alba.
Hi, well, I'm Charlie, and I'm standing to run in Kincorth, Cove, and Nig in Aberdeen, and that's the area that I come from. And I'm running for Alba. Well, before Alba, I was a member of the SNP for 17 years, and I used to deliver leaflets for Nicola Sturgeon and pictures of her through letterboxes during Brexit and stuff. No, I'm doing pictures of myself and all, but I joined Alba pretty much on day one when Alex Salmond announced that he was taking over as a leader, and I've been involved, but not really heavily involved until recently. And I was leafleting, and it was just kind of fate. One of the organisers that was leafleting with said that they were needing a candidate in my ward, and I was kind of shocked that there wasn't already candidates, and we've only got 4 in Aberdeen, but to me it was a surprise that Alba didn't have every ward a candidate, because to me Alba was so exciting, and to me it's a powerful force. I didn't understand that that message hasn't come across yet to the rest of the people, but I guess there's no big gravy train with Alba. We're kind of all totally grassroots and doing stuff ourselves. And we are doing exactly that, but we're getting there.
Oh, it's good to hear, Charlie. It's excellent for the perspective that you were just delivering leaflets. Then you heard that there wasn't a candidate for Alba, and you decided it's good that people are standing up and putting the country first.
Aye, because it was like if I didn't date files, who would do it? You know, and I know that I've got the right. It's the word I'm looking for. The right part. Yes, I have the passion for it, and I'm a local as well. I'm not shipped in from somewhere else. You know, this is my area. I've been in the community council here as well for the last 4 or 5 years, and it always annoyed me that you'd be putting in things and listening to residents complain, but we would do our best to communicate with the council, but it was just like you were a talking shop, and nothing's actually. It's just something to placate the residents, the community council. It's frustrating, and if I get into the council, then I will certainly kick up a fuss when I'm in there. They better watch out.
Good on you. It's good to hear. And we need people that are prepared to actually fight for what's right.
Because I live here. If it affects me here, affects everybody else. So I'm not somebody from that's living in a fancy part of the town and just coming in and making decisions that then affect me. They'll affect me. They'll affect my family, and I want this place to still have the green spaces that it had when I was growing up, you know.
Aye. Well, it's great to hear. I love listening to you, and the passion certainly comes through. What we'll do now, Charlie, is we'll move on to David. We'll get the same question to David, and then we'll come back to you for the next round, mate. All right.
Well, I'm David Maitland, and I was previously a councillor in Aberdeen, and I come from a completely different background to the rest of my colleagues who are standing for election here in Aberdeen. I'm from the Labour Party, and I was a member of the Labour Party for some 26 or whatever years, I lose count, but an awful long time. And I was an elected member back in 1999 to 2002 or something like that, and I achieved a great deal. It was myself who single-handedly got the Western Peripheral route for Aberdeen, and that was an extremely long and hard campaign that I had to do internally with my own Labour colleagues, the parliamentarians, who were doing nothing but regurgitating what they were getting from down south. And I was a lone voice here up in Aberdeen, fighting for Aberdeen, and eventually getting what we really needed and richly deserved. Unfortunately, doing things like that, and also for the first time in local government history, and it hasn't been done since yet either, so it's a claim to fame on this as well. I got the local plan changed, and that's why Aberdeen looks like it does now. It took me 18 months to do that, and it was a fair fecht, as it were, with the planning department in Aberdeen. What we have in Aberdeen now is we have Tekka, and we have a huge development at Dice at the airport, which is where it should be. We've got developments at Cove and the south of the city, where they should be, and also developments at the north, instead of having a massive concrete jungle right in the heart of the city, which was what the original plan was. So if I hadn't done what I'd done, Aberdeen wouldn't look like it is just now. The reward I got for that, in addition to that, it was the only gain for Labour at the election in '99, and we won by 1. So it was a very, very important victory. We had one of a majority, and I was it. So getting the Western Peripheral route, changing the map of Aberdeen as it stands now and for the future, my reward for that was being thrown under a bus, because you do create a lot of enemies when you put your head above the parapet and you achieve what 3 years, 3.5 years, what many people hadn't done in 3.5 decades. And that's cumulative. I'd achieved more in 3.5 years than 40 or 50 other elected members serving Aberdeen had done in 40 or 50 years. So you create a lot of enemies doing that. So I ultimately got thrown under a bus. So I decided to stay within the party, and I did do. Even though I was disillusioned by that, I'm still a working class man with working class values. So I stayed within the party, but I become even more disillusioned over the last maybe 10 or 15 years, and the Labour Party lost me. And while I stayed within the Labour Party, they are nothing like the Labour Party that I joined way back when. And when I look at the figures that we had here, not just here in Aberdeen, but nationally, the figures that we had, the real working class people who were fighting for their fellow working class citizens of our country. We don't have that anymore. I'm a conviction politician. Well, I was a conviction politician, and I plan to be one again. But there are far too many career politicians in our country now, and our political parties are awash with it. So you look at the state of the likes of the SNP and the likes of the Labour Party here in Scotland, and the SNP is on the way down and the Labour Party is on the way out. So when Alex Salmond, I was delighted to see that he came through what I can only describe. Well, it's almost indescribable what that man actually came through. So I had nothing but admiration for him from afar, but I had nothing but admiration for what that man came through, and of course his achievements as well. Even though at the time we came from different ends of the political spectrum. Now, I had nothing but admiration for him, and he stood up and he's formed this new Alba Party. And I didn't join on day one, far from it, but I did maintain a watching brief. And from there, it became clear that Alba was actually the working class party that I'd been looking for over a decade. And I had, if you like, came round to the the prospect of independence for a number of reasons. But primarily, if you look at the condition of Scottish politics and British politics, as it stands at the moment, we have no Labour Party in Scotland. And without a Labour Party in Scotland, the Labour Party can never get a majority in Westminster. That means that Scotland will be governed permanently by a party that we have never and will never vote for. And the only means by which we can get out of that is independence. And so I haven't been dragged kicking and screaming. I'm a realist. And the reality is that the only way that we can have working class values, and we can fight for those, and we can get trade unions properly recognized, and working people to be rewarded and not exploited. The only way we'll ever get that is to gain our own independence. And it's not an issue for me anymore. And we have to get that message across. So I'm standing in a very working class part of Aberdeen. It's Northfield and Maastricht North. I was born and brought up in Northfield, and I was educated there as well. And I spent the first 20 years of my life in Northfield. And then when I became an adult and met a partner, we moved into Maastricht. And that's where my two children were born. So, you know, I have very, very strong and permanent links with Northfield and Maastricht North. And really, my mother and father are still living there. I've got loads of friends and family still absolutely in that area. I regard the Lord Byron as my local, and I'm still a member of the Sunnybank Football Club. So I'm very much a Northfielder. I've spent a lot of time in my life in Maastricht North as well. So when it came up to an area to stand for and stand in, I had absolutely no hesitation whatsoever that it would be Northfield and Maastricht North. So that's why I'm standing. I hope I've given you a bit of background as to where I'm coming from. I'm coming from, I've been an active trade unionist my entire working life. I'm a working class man working for working class values and working class people. I always have done, and I plan to do that again. So the independent side of it for me is through necessity. We can't not have it anymore. And the only way that Scotland can be a nation is if it's free to pursue the values that we have. And those most certainly are not the values of Westminster, and they most certainly aren't the values of the Conservative Party. And if I can just, I know I've been speaking for some time, but if I can just add one thing. My former comrades in Aberdeen City Council are no longer there. They've been overtaken by career politicians who are members of the Labour Party in name alone. And they took over the party locally to such a level that when the electorate in Northfield and Maastricht North, and indeed throughout Aberdeen, voted for the Labour Party at the last council elections, the first thing that they did when they were elected was betray their own voters by getting into a partnership with the Conservative Party. So a vote for Labour in Aberdeen is a vote for the Tory party. It's for Boris Johnson's Westminster Tories. So from there, it gives me no hesitation whatsoever but to stand against the Labour Tories in Aberdeen and expose them for what they are, and for once and for all, to keep the Tories out the townhouse.
Right. If I'm supposed to address every single thing that you said there's no chance. You've brought some amount of experience, which is excellent. The things that I noticed that stuck out for me for what you were saying there, David, taking away the area in which you're standing aside, but you as an individual, would be that you're bringing all that experience. You say that you've been thrown under the bus, so you know that how underhand things can be. You've certainly got a measure on the Labour Party and the Tories in Aberdeen, as you say, betraying the electorate the minute that they were elected. It's exciting to hear that there's somebody with that fight and that fire who knows what they're up against. And the experience, although you say you were thrown under the bus, you'll bring great experience of what that was like and how to try and avoid things like that in the future and see what's coming your way, so to speak. So aye, fair play to you, mate, for standing and doing what you're doing. Aye, well done. Robert, I'm going to come to you next. So, Robert, slightly different for you. Tell us a wee bit about your ward and tell us about how your campaign's going, because we've had you on a couple of times. You'll be the next co-host, so you will.
If only. So yeah, I'm standing in Tillydrone, seating in Old Aberdeen. It's the ward I currently live in. I've lived in for the last 4 years. And it's quite a challenging ward in many respects, because the areas within this ward are in the poorest 10% of people in Scotland. And seeing how the kind of lack of investment around the ward, things piling up and things not getting done, I think it's a shame to see, because it's got the potential to be a fantastic place to live. The campaign itself has actually been pretty good. I've been really enjoying it the past week or so. The weather's been fantastic. Been able to get out every day and knocking on doors, speaking to people, doing stalls, always posting updates of what I've been doing on my Twitter and Facebook. But I think tomorrow it's going to be another busy day. We've got the Alex Salmond Wee Alba Book Roadshow event at the university here. That'll be great. And I think it's got quite a good attendance coming along as well. And also that day, I'll be out leafleting in Tillydrone in the morning till 12, and then I'm going to visit the mosque, meet the imam there, and have a talk in front of the people attending the mosque, and then hand out leaflets for them afterwards. So momentum's starting to build up, and I think all the candidates in the ward and in the city are starting to kind of feel something, because I think the biggest thing, I remember Alex talking to us, and he said the Alba Party is really here to provide that hope to people that the independence is going to come and change is on the horizon if we get elected. And I think that kind of resonates a lot with people out at the doorstep, because a lot of people they're fed up, they're looking for a change. They want people that have had a history of success, and people like David, a great example of that, people like Alex Salmond. For all the people that might try and dislike him, which I've had a few in my ward, and come up to me and say, "Oh, I don't like Alex Salmond." And when you point out to them what he has achieved as a First Minister, they say, "Yeah, actually, he's actually not too bad." And I think getting that message out, getting people to understand who we are and that we exist, was initially a big thing, because we're only a party that's a year old, and you still find people that say, "Oh, I've never heard of Alba Party. What do you stand for?" And I think the messages that we're putting out in the election, so I've got 3 sets of leaflets, each for different areas of the ward, and I'm targeting the key issues that are in the ward. And then I've got the leaflets here from the Labour Party and the SNP, and it's just filled with absolute puff, to be quite frank. Nothing that's targeted to the ward. The SNP had gone down the same rabbit hole as the Labour Party did. People that have been drafted in, I think this candidate lives out in Dice or somewhere in Aberdeenshire, and they don't really care about the communities. They don't even live in the communities. Never mind care about them. So I think people like that we are getting out there, speaking to people, focusing on priorities in the ward. And I think the people in Aberdeen are really kind of looking for that change. And David has hit the nail on the head when it comes to the Labour Party. I mean, sold their souls for a taste of power. It was unbelievable. And they could have had the taste of power if they had joined in coalition with the SNP. That could have happened. But instead, they said, "No, we'll join with the Conservatives." And I think even more insulting, the Labour Party actually did the right thing in suspending all candidates who joined in coalition with the Tories. But just before the election, conveniently, they've been readmitted And I think many of them are hoping that people in Aberdeen have forgotten about it, and it's certainly our job to remind them of that, because they're not going to get away with it. Somebody representing the communities that I'm living in, jumping in bed with the Tories. The Tories have no interest whatsoever in people in Tillydrone or Seaton. I mean, I went around leafleting in tenements in Seaton last week, and the Tories candidate, she's been out there leafleting, but she just opens the front door of the tenement, just dumps all our leaflets in there, expecting people maybe to come out their doors and pick them up or what, just littering in people's tenements. They don't care. They're not interested in getting the votes, because it actually kind of angers me that they can sit there and pretend that this never happened. And I think people come 5th of May in Aberdeen will let their voices known, to be honest.
Well, interesting. So this will be your first time running, is that right?
Yes, that is
Right.
correct.
Now, I noticed a wee cheeky smile on your face, and I noticed it when you were talking about getting involved and getting run about the doors, etc. How is the experience? How are you enjoying it? Because you mentioned, obviously, you've got David that you can look towards, as well as others, Alex Salmond, namely, for that experience. But as your first time, how you find that?
It's a different experience to what I kind of expected. I wasn't entirely sure what to expect, but it's certainly been a really enjoyable one. And you find even though you might live in the ward, you find so many extra things out about the ward that you perhaps didn't know about. There's so many things that going round, because there's roads that you've never been down, or people that you've never met, and it's been a great experience. And I think online, I'm fairly young. Well, I'm 23 next month, so
We're not getting your birthday present, right? But stop dropping hints, right? You're 23 next month.
nearly mid-20s, I guess. And so you get a lot of people online, mostly trolls on Twitter, saying, "Oh, what can you do? What can you provide for people that you represent?" And there seems to, in their view, be a kind of age limit about joining up and representing people. I think people of my age can have a wealth of experience and perspective on the world, and I certainly bring that to the table through what I've done in my life. And but I think that's mostly reserved for trolls on Facebook and Twitter, because actually going down around the doorstep, people think it's great that a young person's actually interested and want to get involved in their community. So yeah, I had apprehensions about kind of standing in the first place, because I'd always been hypercritical of many people in the SNP, people that they were in my party, and you could see that they were just there because they seen a council job or working as a parliamentary assistant as a next stepping stone, hopefully getting a comfy seat at the Scottish Parliament elections or Westminster elections. So I was always really critical of people like that. And so I felt a bit hypocritical standing myself, but like Charlie said, if I am a careerist politician, I've chosen the wrong party to do it in, because currently there's no careers within the Alba party. But look, I think the campaign's going well, and the hardest thing is you just don't know at all how well until the 6th of May. So
it's all guesswork. It's guesswork everywhere. No, it's good that you're enjoying it, and it's good that you're getting that feedback on the doors. That, well, it's good to see that young people are interested in their community. But to come back on what you were saying about the people that you'd seen in positions before, and you felt as if you were being hypocritical by standing. You're only hypocritical if you stand and do the same as them.
Yeah,
It's
what it gives off, though. I think a lot of people, I think that's probably why they get the trolls and people on Twitter and Facebook, because they see the same things that I'd seen, and these people that have no interest, and people that, quite frankly, 30 years ago would have been in the Labour Party, and if they were still in power. So I think that's why people have this perception, and it affects everyone, even those that do actually have an interest in the community, and people that do want to do well for the city and Scotland as a whole. So, but yeah, absolutely right.
Keep on keeping on. Keep on keeping on, young Robert. Right, we're going to move on to Brian Allen next. Brian, over to you. Just tell the audience or viewers a wee bit about you, the ward you're running in, why you chose to run for Alba.
Well, what can I add to these guys? These guys have me in awe at their energy and push. You know, I'm a bit more laid back than these guys. So I was born and brought up in Dundee to the age of 14. I moved up to Aberdeen with my mum and dad, and I've stayed in areas that need a bit more focus put on them, let's say. I'm now in the neighbouring ward from where I'm standing, which is Ferryhill and Torry. Torry is a kind of a real poor area, one of these deprived areas, and Ferryhill's a bit different. It's a bit better, and so it's going to be a mix between the two for my work. So I'm actually live in the neighbouring ward from where I'm standing, and that's Charlie's ward. So I've got a good candidate there. We'll be keeping an eye on him and doing our best for him. So I've come into politics, well, since 2014. I never really did anything, and I felt that we were actually cheated back then, and I've been not mostly involved in politics as such in a direct way, but I did start to volunteer. So I'm retired, and I started doing a lot of volunteering within Cove itself, where I stay, and in Torry, because I stayed in Torry for a while and had my first home there with my missus. But we moved to Cove to bring up our kids. And I still volunteer quite a lot for Torry. And now the synthetics escapade, if you like, it seems like the residents of Torry are not being asked and not being listened to when they say what they want, and they didn't want an incinerator next door, which is actually in Charlie's ward, and they didn't want the park taken away. It's kind of the last really big open space where I used to muck about with the kids when they were younger. So we're not really wanting that to be taken over by the hinterland for the new harbour. Certainly not without a just transition in terms of the people who actually live there. It's all very well having a just transition for the money men, but they really need to keep the people on board as well. And it's time that some money was spent on Torry in particular. So my ambition of going to council is really an extension of my volunteering, and to ensure that what goes on there is just and proper. And any shenanigans, I'll be determined to be on top of that for the people of Torry and for Ferryhill as well. You know, so I mean, I'm not as talkative as these guys, so I don't really care what else to say, except in terms of Alba itself. I mean, I did do a year of support for SNP. So I was a member of SNP for about a year. And to be honest, I never felt at home there. You know, but when Alex started up Alba, I was in there pretty early, and I just felt that the values that they hold and they talk about and they discuss suit my values. You know, and as long as that's the case, I'll always be fighting hard for Alba. And I think Alba will definitely get us independence. Maybe not through the political kind of direct action, but certainly there's talk about other actions. Alex Salmon said initially, very early on, that this would be the party of the people. And it's the people we really need to be involved, and not the career politicians, as these guys have been speaking about.
Thanks very much, Brian. It's good to hear. You're supposed to, what's the old saying? You need to watch out for the quiet ones. The quiet ones you need to watch out for, right? So it doesn't make any difference that you're not as talkative as other people, as long as you're doing the actions, and certainly with your volunteer work and getting involved in communities and providing that support. That's the kind of a thing that councillors, that's the kind of a councillor you're looking for, somebody that knows, right, well, this is how this operates, that's how this works, this is how we get for this and this, and so on and so forth. So it doesn't make any difference that you're not talkative, as long as the actions are carried out. Because as we've all mentioned about career politicians, it's all talk, there's nothing done. It's like, here we go, it's something, jam tomorrow. I mean, that's all we seem to ever get. Right, we're going to have a wee interlude. We're going to have a wee trip to the cinema, so to speak, and watch a wee video clip now. Because this week was the launch of the Alba Party's party election broadcast. So you have probably seen it, but we're going to watch it again, and then we'll discuss it a wee bit afterwards. So.
Morning headlines with Glenn Robertson. The average household in Scotland is set to pay up to 54% more on their energy bills from 1st of April. With prices likely to soar again in October, it is already estimated that up to 200,000 Scottish households will be plunged into fuel poverty. In other news, Scottish motorists are facing record high prices at the petrol.
You see, what I just don't understand is why is our electricity bills going up yet again? I mean, because of the cost of gas. We've got our own power for wind.
We've got turbines all over the place. And all over the sea as well. And then there's hydro.
Well, there's plenty of water in Scotland.
And don't forget, we still have bags for our gas.
And oil. My mum's up to hide over the bills.
So why are our bills going up?
And they're right, of course. It's not just pub talk. Scotland can keep the lights on alone with renewables. And we produce way more than we actually need in gas and oil. But Westminster sets energy prices on the international price of gas and are controlled by international capital. They get the profits, Westminster get the revenues, and Scots pay the bills. So instead of going cap in hand to London, let's have a look at what we should do in Scotland right now to tackle the cost of living crisis. How this will benefit you and your family, and how much more we can do with the powers of independence.
Vote Alba to increase the Scottish child payment to £40 per week.
You came to Glasgow with nothing.
Alba will double the educational maintenance allowance for 16 to 19-year-olds in school or college.
You came to Glasgow with nothing at all.
Let's give free school meal for every child in Scotland.
Vote Alba for £500 annual payment for all low-earning households that receive a council tax reduction.
You built a great business, it benefits all.
Alba will introduce universal access to sports facilities for all under the age of 18.
In Scotland's story, I read that they came.
Vote Alba to elect local champions across Scotland that will defend the hard-won sex-based rights for women.
They're all Scotland's story and they're all worth the same.
A vote for Alba is a vote to freeze council tax.
Joseph D'Angelo dreams of...
Only with independence will we take the power over Scotland's future away from Westminster and put it back in the hands of the Scottish people.
With independence, we would have the power to open up our doors to refugees in the time of need and not have Scotland's humanitarian efforts blocked by a callous Westminster government.
With independence, an energy that Scotland could choose not to drive its citizens into poverty with unaffordable energy bills.
They're in my land story and they're all worth the same.
So why are families suffering from fuel poverty in our land of energy plenty? With control of our own resources through independence, we could build a very different, much fairer and pretty special society here in Scotland. And what better place than here in Arbroath to make a declaration to do just that. But first, we need a political party that quite literally stands for Scotland. And that's Alba. So on May the 5th, vote Alba for independence.
Hey Charlie, so we're going to come to you first. So what did you think of that when you seen it?
I thought it was a great video. It's in stark contrast to the SNP's very negative video, and it really hits home with the energy thing. My wife describes it as a Ken Loach film, And she's a Ken Loach fan, so that is a compliment. And they are using actors. They're not using actors, they're using real people, which is something that Ken Loach has always done as well.
Yeah.
And he's really going for the personal story of the left, with the start with the pensioner, with the gas bills coming through, and this single parent, and you know that's something that is the energy thing at the moment. That's an absolute scandal, and that's allowed to happen here in this energy-rich country. And I've been out. I don't know if I should say it, but I was out campaigning, and I'm about I was at a house about 500 meters, because I measured it 500 meters from two of the biggest oil companies in Aberdeen, and there's a woman needing a food bank, alone and worried in her house like an invisible person, 500 meters away from two of the biggest companies. They're billionaire companies, and we're sitting with the biggest wind farm. You can see from the window of my house here, I can see the biggest wind farm in the world, and the energy prices are going through. I mean, that is a scandal, and that nobody is doing anything properly about it. I mean, giving some people a little, oh, here you go, here's £150 or £200 off your bill, but you'll have to pay it back as a loan at some point. I mean, that kind of help is not even help, because the increases are crippling, and there's more on the way. And that film touches on that and really gets it strikes that emotional part. It's a human thing that you can see that Alba know what they're talking about. You know, they're understanding people. They're understanding people, and the other political parties, I don't know what planet they're on. I really don't know.
No,
they're away in fancy jets and fancy cars and ermine robes and stuff. You know.
Well, I see that's it. We'll come on to some of the other parties a wee bit later, but first we'll get David's thoughts on the party election broadcast. David, what's your thoughts on the party election broadcast? What was your initial feeling about it?
Well, I'm grateful to Charlie for speaking for a bit, because my rage was there a bit. I've calmed down a bit. Been an Aberdonian my whole life, and you know, I know I was a councillor for some years, but I've spent 35 years offshore. Okay, I had a gap when when the oil price is down, but also when I got elected as a councillor, of course. And but the last 35 years I've been offshore all over the world, and always come back to my hometown of Aberdeen. Aberdeen, the oil and gas capital of Europe for the last half a century, and now you know, the world energy capital. You know, and yes, it's absolutely infuriating to think that Aberdeen as a city, and I know we've got Aberdeen, the northeast of Scotland, and Shetland, of course. When we talk about Scotland's oil, we could be a bit more specific, actually, because it's all from here. But the thing is, Aberdeen generates for the UK economy an average. Obviously, some years more, some years less. This year it'll definitely be more. But for the last 7 years, Aberdeen, the northeast of Scotland, and Shetland have gone through what isn't a recession. This is my fourth recession in 35 years, but this one isn't a recession, it's a depression. And in return for bankrolling Britain for half a century, that's 50 years of an average of 10 billion. Half a trillion Aberdeen, the city of, has generated for the UK economy. In return, Aberdeen gets the lowest per capita funding for any city in the country. And that's why Charlie's absolutely right to say that 500 meters from global multinational energy companies, well, they're oil and gas, but they're now calling themselves energy companies because it's a bit more politically correct, if that's still a relevant word, or woke, or whatever it is, the flavour of the month this month. And that's the reality. The reality is also that in areas like mine and in areas like Roberts, that the sheer poverty that you see every single day of every single week, yet Aberdeen is seen as being this utopia. It's far from any utopia. I've worked and lived in places like Houston, Dubai, Baku, the other oil capitals of this world. And Aberdeen is nowhere near. It's not even in the same league. That might have the same title as one of the oil capitals of the world, but it is by no means anywhere like it. But if you ask anybody outside of this area, the northeast of Scotland, anything about Aberdeen, it's a land of rich and plenty. It is far from it. It isn't. People need to come and take a real look at what's actually happening here in Aberdeen. What 50 years of the lowest funding in the country does to any city when you just suck all the money, all the resources, everything out of an area. And it reminds me actually of what happened to other parts of Scotland when things like coal was suddenly bad news. And then that community was completely abandoned. And what about steel? What about manufacturing? Where an area and its people are totally exploited until it's all run dry. And then they've got no use anymore. So they're just abandoned. And I'll speak about the last 7 years here in Aberdeen in the northeast of Scotland, because for the last 7 years, Aberdeen has struggled and suffered very, very badly. It's the worst depression that this city and area has ever seen in our history. And we've seen real, genuine poverty and people losing their houses and their livelihoods and worse. There really has been a terrible time. What did we get in return for bankrolling Britain for half a century? Well, I can be very precise, actually. I can tell you the exact pounds, shilling and pence that Aberdeen got. Zero. Absolutely nothing whatsoever. A couple of token gestures that got some headlines but didn't last 5 minutes. The transition fund is nothing more than a holding document between here and the next election. Absolutely nothing whatsoever. The only person in British politics standing up and speaking up for Aberdeen, the northeast of Scotland, and our nation's oil and gas industry is Alex Salmond. Everybody else is not only not talking up for the oil and gas industry, the energy industry in our country, they're talking it down. Keir Starmer said, we're not going to go ahead with Cambo. It's a very bad idea. Why? Because it sends the wrong signals. Well, that's 15,000, 25,000 jobs out the window because it sends the wrong signals. The wrong signals to who? Because the 15,000 to 25,000 people who be employed in that industry, they wouldn't give them a wrong impression. And what about the lower energy that we'd all benefit from throughout our nation? And all we have to do to get that is to give the operators the permission to open the taps. And we can be energy independent effectively immediately, because all we have to say to them is open the taps, develop Cambo, develop the North Sea, because the transition between here and there, wherever that there is, and whenever there is, when we can actually move from what I call organic fuels, because fossil fuels are, of course, 100% organic. So to move from organic fuels to renewables is decades away. So what are we going to do between now and then? Well, what we should be doing is what Alex said and what Alba's now saying. And that is open the taps. Open the taps for Scotland and get our energy independence. We have to we can be energy independent very, very quickly. And not only that, why on earth aren't we helping out the other nations that make up these isles? And what about the other countries throughout Europe who are now learning at their great cost and to the great cost, the ultimate cost of other people in Europe, even on this day, that they need a reliable, secure, friendly supplier for their own energy. And Scotland has that. Why on earth are we not energy independent right now? Lowering the prices of energy for every single Scottish citizen, every household within Scotland would benefit immediately from lower energy prices. And then not exploit. That's totally the wrong word, but we can maximize the current situation by saving our other British colleagues and our other European nations, because Scotland can benefit enormously if we were independent and allowed to keep our own oil money by supplying all the people who now need supplied from people like us. So when I saw the video for the first time at the launch of the manifesto, it was quite an emotional moment for me. And I'm sure anybody who watched it for the first time, it's obviously this occasion is not by far not the first time I've seen it, but it was absolutely superb to see real people talking real language about the real issues that face us right now here in Scotland. And then to have the great orator that he is, Alex Salmond, right at the very end, summing it right up the way that he did was truly inspirational. And for a first party political broadcast, wow. I haven't seen the other party political broadcasts, so I can't compare. But if this is anything to go by, then as we are in other ways, we're way, way ahead of the competition, if you like. And we're not just talking the talk, we're walking the walk as well, because if you look at our policies, our policies as well, they're right there, and they're what our nation needs. But what we need to do is let our nation know about it. We haven't been helped by a not very helpful media, that's for sure. But let's see what happens on May the 5th. And from there, we can take that message, the message from this party political broadcast forward to say that Alba is for Scotland. It's not just for Scotland, it's for all Scotland.
Thanks, David. Thank you very much. It's good to hear the passion coming through about just how affected areas are, people are, and the misconceptions that people have about certain areas. And it's good to get that voice, because voices only getting heard, as you say. It's a case of if they even get asked, they're not getting actioned. But when they're not asked, they're not getting represented. Everything then starts to crumble, and you see that the waste as it's happening across the full of the country, but specifically in areas of the country that should be richer for the resources that they've got there on their doorstep. Robert, we're going to come to you next, mate. What was your thoughts when you seen it?
I seen it first at the manifesto launch on Tuesday, and I was actually kind of emotional when I seen it, because I thought it just hit the nail on the head. It mirrored exactly the conversations that I've been having with people in and around my ward. People don't quite understand why on earth the bills are going skyrocket, going through the roof. Every day now, people have to go and top up, put money on their Lecky card, and these people aren't people that can really afford to do that. So they are people there making the choices between heating or eating, and it's a bit of a cliched saying, but that's the reality for so many people currently. And I like the point that again Charlie raised. These are all real people, punters in a pub, and this is what they're talking about. And I think, again, looking at to what other parties have to offer at this election. I mean, I was at Hustings last night, and the Labour Party candidate there talked about how the Labour Party wants a windfall tax on oil and gas companies. Like, okay, very well, that sounds good, but Aberdeen City Council can't deliver that. The Labour Party are nowhere near power in Holyrood, and they're nowhere near power in Westminster. So they can't do that. Why are they running on that kind of platform for a council election? And then I posed a question to the panel last night. Alba were due to be represented, but then our invite was revoked because I can't remember the ridiculous reason they gave. But so I went along anyway and asked the question: if Scotland produces 97% of its electricity from offshore wind, how come electric bills are skyrocketing currently? Has the price of wind increased? And you got the usual, what you'd expect from the Labour Party, the Tories, Lib Dems, they want to keep away from the answer, the true answer about independence. And it came to the SNP punter. And I was gobsmacked at his response. He said, oh, that's because in Scotland, we do quite well with renewables, but other areas of the UK don't. And so we need to try and pressurise the UK government to increase their production of renewable energy. And you think, is this the party of independence? This is the party of government. This is set up on a tee, ready for you to smack. The answer is because we aren't independent. We don't have control over these things. And it's as if every SNP politician has been told to not mention independence in this campaign. It's worrying. And I think it's one of the things that probably could have damaged us a lot if the SNP had gone really hard on independence. I think people would have really got G'd up and really backed them. But I think I can sense an apathy amongst their support. And a lot of people I'm speaking to think, God, how many more promises do we need before we get another referendum? I think they see the council elections as a fantastic mechanism to lodge their protest to the SNP, that you need to deliver on your commitment to independence, so we can alleviate the damages that the energy crisis is delivering across the country. And if you don't, then my vote is, I'm not just going to lend my vote to the Alba Party, they'll keep it. So I think that's why this election is so important. That's why we are putting on every single piece of paper that goes through the door, talking about independence, relating the skyrocketing bills to the issue of independence, because it's fundamental to it. And again, I'll go back to the SNP leaflet I've kindly got today. They've got nothing about how they can alleviate poverty and what they're going to give to the community. They've got talking about kind of vanity projects like transform our beachfront. There's plans right now for going on just outside my ward, actually, along the beach. This new beachfront, spending hundreds of millions of pounds on something like that when families can't afford energy, are eating out of food banks. The number of food banks in my ward, which is in terms of areas, is quite tiny. I think there's around 6 food banks. It's unbelievable, and it shouldn't be happening. And that's what the SNP are spending their time on, not talking about independence, not about how we can really solve these issues, but vanity projects like looking at the beachfront. I'm in despair, and that's why I'm so grateful that the Alba Party came about, and why Alex, with his determination, which is, staggering, what he's been doing this week alone, all across the country, talking about independence, promoting the Wee Blue Book or the Wee Alba Book. So I'm so grateful that Alba Party have came into Scottish politics, because if we were just left the SNP right now, I don't think I would be voting in the election, because I would be sick to the back teeth of it. And hopefully there's enough people in this ward and across Aberdeen and Scotland that feel the same as I do.
Cheers, Robert. I'm going to, because you played the age card earlier on, calling us all fogies or something like that. You never called us all fogies, right? But now, you're feeling that at 23. Can you imagine how the rest of us are feeling sitting on this recording now, that have been marched up the hill? Aye, all right, we almost got a taste of it in 2014. You obviously as well, young man, but for the perspective of, at that age, I would have thought you might have had other things that were occupying your mind other than politics and what was going on. But at this young age, to feel the frustration that a lot of people that have years and years on you, and probably generations on you, are feeling and have felt since 2014 to now. I mean, it's frustrating, and it's been touched on by just about everybody, the fact that nothing's happening. It's the mention of, and nothing's getting done. Oh, but we'll do the vanity projects, as you say. And again, the politics that divide people rather than build the movement. So we'll leave that to now, because we'll maybe come back to that later. Brian, over to you, mate. What was your thoughts when you seen the party election broadcast?
Well, I'm glad to hear that the rest of the guys got emotional as well. I thought it was just me being the old one of the group, I suppose. But one thing for me that was missing is mention of environmental issues. Now we've got good shots of the lochs and the hills and such like, and just spoiled by the Cumberland, that statue thing, and that was a wee bit of a spoiler, but yeah, it was there for a reason. But I'm a grandfather, and I've got 4 lovely grandchildren, and I'm really concerned about them in terms of environmental aspects. And I believe that the politicians that we've had have taken us to the point where we're in a very dangerous position. And you know, the war in Ukraine and all that is about bad politics. It's just the type of people that we've got there. And part of that is I feel guilty for not taking part in politics when I was younger. And it just got on me raising a family, going to work, doing all the things and not paying any attention. Initially voting for Labour because that's what my mum and dad did. And then I broke away from them and started voting SNP. I even voted Liberal Democrat for a wee bit, you know, because they seem to be doing no bad. But I've always voted. I've very rarely missed any voting. So I think now this is almost my last chance in a way to be able to do something politically to change it, because I am really concerned about the way things have gone. And for me, that broadcast showed a lot of positivity towards the end, having started off in a kind of wee teary kind of way, and towards the end gave a positive outlook that Alba Party can go ahead and do something.
Aye,
you know?
I feel you. I feel you without feeling you, because we don't want any of that. But no, I know what you're saying. Like, I watched it for the first time. I'll share my thoughts on it as well, guys. I watched it for the first time at home, and I was due to go into a podcast at 6:30. So it was on at 6:25. So, and then 5 to 7. But I was due to be on a podcast, so I thought I'll watch the 6:25 one, and I'll rush to get the podcast started thereafter. But I couldn't. And what you said, that it was emotional, it was angering, it was upbeat, as you said, towards the end, Brian, where it went for that doom to that wee bit of hope. Was how I seen it. And the environmental issues, as you said, Brian, as well. Okay, it's something that we've got to be concerned about. I think I seen a fish farm as the camera was scaling out there as well. So although they're no really mentioning environmental issues as such, they're trying to cover as much, in my opinion, in the video without saying every single issue. It's like giving you a perspective here. I thought it was really, really powerful, I must admit. And when I was sitting watching, as we watched it back there again, I started clapping. I think another couple were clapping as well. You know, it's one of the things that people feel a connection toward. That it was all people who were in the pub. It was the Eagle Inn in Coatbridge was the pub. Who Robert Slavin, who's the candidate for that area for Alba, is the landlord in that pub. So it was his pub, and it was just regulars in his pub that were there on the day, and they just spoke. I thought it got me. It really did. And even with the manifesto launch, I've been watching a lot of the things online, trying to catch up with bits and bobs as I'm doing things in between. The manifesto launch as well. I mean, there's a lot of passion getting shared again for there, and it's building a movement. Or maybe it's not building a movement, maybe it's rebuilding a movement, because there was already a movement there. And for the people that have came in for maybe Labour or Lib Dems, whatever, I've always been yes. It's one of the things that I can't hide. I'll never hide. I've always been yes. So to have other people seeing what we're seeing, and we have been seeing for a while, are seeing where it's been going, the potential to where we could end up versus the direction that they're taking us. It's really refreshing to see. But I try and make it a wee bit more upbeat now, right? And we'll take that get that bit in the past, and we'll have a wee look. We'll do a wee comparison with a mock-up campaign video. You've probably seen it on Twitter or online somewhere, but I'll do a wee share. Now, this was Shawnee Boy, courtesy of Shawnee Boy. So here we go.
Hi, I'm Barry Runter, he, him, local SNP candidate in the upcoming council elections. Okay, what's your policies? What? Policies? What are your policies? We're the SNP, where we're going, we don't need policies. Hit it. Ease the squeeze. Till the shite's just running out, ease the squeeze. Gravy train won't climb aboard itself, you know. Ease the squeeze. Looping you up for the Tory party, ease the squeeze. We are really good at PR though. Ease the squeeze. Nicola Sturgeon is better than Jesus, ease the squeeze. I think she's even better than JFK, ease the squeeze. Disagree with us and you're a Nazi, ease the squeeze. I'm going on at least 5 holidays this year. Right, mate. Policies, mate. Policies. What are your policies? Yous have been in charge in the government for like 15 years, man. Policies, what are yous going to do? Oh my god. Like, I can't actually believe the bigotry you're displaying just now. Absolutely. Oh, it's literal violence. Ease the squeeze. Working class people make us uneasy. Ease the squeeze. I am so working class though. Ease the squeeze. Looping you up for the Tory party. Ease the squeeze. Those Spares Den schemes are brutal though. Ease the squeeze. We don't really give a fuck about you. Ease the squeeze. We can just really do what we want at this point. Ease the squeeze. Disagree with us and you're a Nazi. Ease the squeeze. Scottish people aren't smart. What happened to you lot, man? What happened to you? I'll put that down as a yes. Absolutely fantastic response in the doors. Ease the squeeze. Ease the squeeze.
Right, whoa. Right. So hold on. I'm going to put everybody on screen here. Right. So I seen you having a wee chocolate that there. It's terrible how parody is mocking real life, isn't it? I'll come to you first, Charlie.
Yeah, I'm glad I'm there standing in the SNP after seeing that video, that's for sure. Because it is, I mean, art does that, you know, and that's a piece of art. And I would say that guy's a bit of a genius, and the way he's put that together, it's really close to the bone.
Oh, very close to the bone. I asked Shawnee Boy if I could get permission to use his clip, and he says, aye, wire in. But aye, as you say, it's his skills at they're fantastic to put that together. And
I like his line. What happened to you, man? That's how everybody feels, again.
But that's the frustration, as we've been saying. David, I'll come to you. What was your thoughts on that wee parody video?
Well, when I first saw it, I'm not on Twitter, so I should be, of course, as a candidate, but I've never done the social media. But it was very kindly sent to me, and I first started watching. What on earth's this? And the further it went on, it just satire and how it can relate to real life so accurately.
Why? And
says so much in a manner that people can totally relate to, and of course a humorous manner, taking very serious issues and using satire as has been done throughout history, of course. But you see, that's very interesting because the SNP hasn't really been satirized, you know, not to anything like any other political party, and they've got off lightly for a long time, a long time. Sturgeon's SNP, I might add. I mean, there's a previous SNP and there's now SNP, and when you look at, you know, top of European league tables to not even featuring in a league table for health, education, and everything else, the worst record of any government anywhere in Britain, in any part of Britain's British government history, you know, and he's wrapped that up. And where they are right now, you know, and what they're trying to say, and the manner in which they're saying it, he's got down to a fine knack. And yeah, I was extremely impressed. In fact, the more it went on, the better it got. You know, so yeah, I mean, that's a real tough. I would end by saying this: I just cannot wait to see his next one. And you know, every single time Sturgeon opens her mouth or turns up without a mask or whatever it is, or you know, having kids in Parliament, running the country, you know, all this stuff she's come out with recently. And you know, I can't wait to see his next video, and you know, to go for Sturgeon like she's never been gone before, because she's got off so lightly, and he's the man to do it.
Aye, I think so. And just touching on satire is it's a very strong and effective tool if used correctly. And I think it certainly was used correctly on that wee clip. Robert, what was your thoughts on it, mate?
It's actually funnier just even thinking about it, and then you can relate the clips that you put in with things in real life that you've experienced, and you just think it's hit the nail on the head. And I think it's the, like what we were talking about earlier on about the careerists that have been part in it. It captures them perfectly. There's a well-known one in Aberdeen in particular that it is him. It is that the character is exactly what he's like in life. And being a member of the YSI, who I was, there's plenty of them, and it's just fantastic. And I think it's things like that. I think something that you could probably relate it to is Bonnie Prince Bob did a video last year for the Scottish Parliament elections, and that was another attempt. It was kind of a bit drier humour, but that was a fantastic video to highlight exactly the kind of carpetbagging that goes on within the SNP and how they completely lost their kind of roots and what they're really should be there doing. So I think if people haven't watched that, I should definitely go watch Bonnie Prince Bob's video. It's fantastic as well. But
I think I've seen it at the time, Robert.
Yeah,
if you've got a link for it, send it and we'll cut it through.
Yeah, but it's I think more stuff like that. And I think Shawnee D he's another pro-independence supporter, and he's somebody that's just gradually just getting fed up. I think, and then it's not him alone. It's I think so many of us that my dad's still a member of the SNP, and I think he's I was actually back home, and he when the SNP political broadcast come up, and they kind of it's completely negative, no vision, no future, and then that crass ending with the stereotypical granny throwing a plastic Tory. And then again, because I was in Manifesto launch in Dundee, I went home that night and spoke to my dad, and we put the Alba Party broadcast on, and it's night and day, and he's still got that little hope that the SNP will deliver. But he says that next year's the end, and I think that is why it's so important again that we put people into council halls all across the country.
So when did they get his head injury, your dad? I'll probably cut that bit out in case we get. Right, Brian, what was your thoughts on the video?
Well, that kind of satire is kind of new to me, and there were certain bits in it kind of really on edge, and I suppose it feels a bit disgusting in parts. Like that chocolate. I'll never think the same about chocolate anymore. And
so he's done you a favour then. He's helped you with your diabetes.
But the thing is, that's really disgusting about it is that it's a good reflection of what's happening.
Aye.
You know, and that's where the SNP have come to, and it's really I can't figure out whether they're doing it on purpose for some kind of reason, or whether it's just because they're so daft. You know, it's just can't understand it.
Aye,
it definitely is time for a change. You know, and I feel really sorry. I mean, I go out and plant apple trees with this other lad. He's a very, very good friend, and I really like him, and I think he thinks the same with myself when we go out and plant these apple trees. And he's still very much in with the SNP. And my feeling is that these old timers that have been in the SNP for many, 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 many years, they are going to find it really hard. And when they do realise what's been happening, it's going to be hard on them. And I think they deserve a lot of sympathy from us, because they've just come late to the game. And it's going to be hard on them. And I think we should support them as much as possible. But we can't keep up the pretense. We need to start saying, this is where the SNP have arrived to. We need change, because it's not going to happen. Independence will not happen with them.
I don't think so. I said to previous people that I've had on the podcast, I can't see a referendum next year. This was when it was first shouted out that we were going to have one in 2023. It's not what happens, if you ask me. But just the video, and he touched on what you were saying there, how it's edgy, and it will be edgy for different generations, and that's the thing. We'll talk about the GRA, and the video, without even mentioning it, targets a lot of the things specific to the GRA. The he, him, the pronouns, right? So
literal violence as well.
Aye, literal violence. All of the things that people have been thrown at them. I mean, the only thing that was missing for that, because I don't think transphobe, did they mention transphobe in that? I don't think it did.
Nazi as well. But
he said Nazi,
same thing nowadays.
Didn't say, well, it's a just slur here with anybody that you're talking to for the woke mob. So it's whatever slur they want to throw at you. But as Brian says, it's edgy to certain generations who have not seen things like that, and who have and we spoke about it earlier, who people that maybe aren't interested in politics and didn't know about the Alba party when you were around shutting the doors, because politics isn't, for certain people, it's just no a thing. It's like, oh no, they switch off when there's politics. What you're getting now is you're getting more people. How is this affecting me? Folk like myself, I always say I'm like for the scheme. I'm one of the schemies, right? And it's how I used to get switched off when politics were on and when certain people were talking, because like, they used to say things that I didn't understand. It's like, oh no, they're using words that don't fit into a sentence for me. So it was like, when I was younger, it was like, oh, I don't get that off. I don't know what I know about it. And then it was a case of, how that's affecting me. How is it affecting me? And then having to find out. And then, well, okay. I never went to university. I never went to college. But it was a case of, until it affects you, sometimes you don't realise, but it's affecting everybody. And now everybody's kind of pulling into the support of the country is the way I'll put it. Well, hold on, because we know we've got a great wee country here. We know that we've got resources, abundance of resources. Well, the Saudi Arabia wind power, we've got oil for 100 years and more. So I mean, there is all this that Scotland has, and people know that it has, and you've got people trying to write, well, let's get the people in place like yourselves, councillors like yourselves, that are going to pass that message and go, right, well, we've tried it with this. Look, we were promised in 2014, if you voted no, that was the only way you were going to remain in the EU, and all the promises, the vow, you'd all this rubbish. So people are kind of switching on to it, but that video clip kind of takes it across the full SNP journey for me. I was never a member of the SNP. I was never a member of a political party, and it was a case of, because they all lie, they all talk rubbish and never do anything, and it's just false promises, and it's like, aye, jam the motor. But I always believed that Scotland had the potential to be an independent country. I'd like, even for a young boy, it was always wondered why at the Olympics Scotland were never there. And that was my first thing. How come Scotland done at the Olympics? And then, this is probably showing my age, I think it was Alan Wells was running. And my dad was telling us about it, and I'm like, no, I don't get this. We're playing the World Cup, and this was my response to it. We're playing the World Cup. We go to European Championships. We do all this. How come? So even as a young boy, I always believed that Scotland had the right to be independent. I didn't know half of the things that we had, because the history was hidden phase. We weren't educated. I certainly wasn't educated in Scotland at school. I was educated in a load of shite. Basically, a load of shite that meant nothing to anybody in Scotland, other than the fact that, well, we own you. Right? That's how I took it. Even when I left school, it was a case of feeling as if you were in Totally Westminster. When I was leaving school, I heard my parents talking about it, the miners' strikes and things like that. Because my great grandfather was a miner, his own mining company. So it was one of the things that my parents talked about, and I knew things and I heard things, but I didn't put them all together until after all we're in this shitty situation, and we're like, oh, hold on now, you can't. Right, I can't put the heating on because I want to have my dinner tonight. And we had somebody on for a panel, I think it was 2 panels ago, that says that they got a nice bit of chicken for £2 odds, but it cost them £11 to actually cook the chicken with their gas and electricity. So what we're failing as a country. So, I think David, or maybe even Brian says, is this happening to Scotland on purpose? Are they making it this bad on purpose? And you've got to say that, well, if we were independent, the outlook would be a lot brighter than what it is. I know that we've got a war in Europe, but all of these things taken into account, for the party election broadcast with the Alba Party to that mock video, it just shows the difference between, as we're saying, how real it is and how parody is mocking real life with where we're at the minute, night and day. Right, we're going to finish up this week. Sorry.
You do start to wonder if they're doing it deliberate, like Brian says, when they put out things in their leaflets telling people to vote SNP 1 and 2 and for no other party. Like, what's that about? Is that just an extremely dafty person at the top making political decisions about, or is there an ulterior motive there? Do they want heaps of unionists in power alongside them in the councils? Or?
Oh, let's jump back a year. Let's look at history.
Aye.
When it was a case of, oh no, with the chance of supermajority, the chance of everything, the chance of Scotland having everything that most independent minded folk dreamy. And
well,
it was taken away.
That comes back to the whole gravy train thing. I mean, where you have conviction politicians at the start, they then get into positions, comfortable positions, where that conviction disappears and they then become career politicians, because it's a really quite comfortable life when you've got a terrific salary, no matter what happens, what consequences your decisions have on real people. You're still getting your money. Well, we've seen that in the last 2 years. You're still getting your money. You're still getting your pension contributions, and comfortable ones at that. And so why would you want independence then in your independence party when you've got all the members of that party who are saying that they want independence, but it's not a good career decision if Scotland gets it.
Mm-hmm.
I think just to quickly put in, I think there's a lot of arrogance and kind of hubris within the SNP at the moment, and I think you don't even need to look that far back to see how quickly things can change for a dominant party in Scotland. The Labour Party, when I was in 2010, you'd have never in a million years imagined that the next election after that they'd have been essentially wiped out. And I think even more recently, I think when you see what the Brexit Party did, of course, opposite end of the political spectrum to Alba, but how they really struck a chord with people, ordinary working class people in England, and what they felt, their dissatisfaction, and what they did at the European elections. The Tories falling to 4th place, a party of government. It's unthinkable. So the electorate, when they start to get fed up, and they've done it as recently as 2 years ago, and then again in 2015. So I think the people that are kind of laughing at Alba are the ones that display arrogant tweets and stuff. I think really need to kind of rein that in, because I think they might end up with a bit of egg on their face.
Well, hopefully it's an omelette. Right, Brian.
Yeah.
Aye, so just to come back on, it's good that you mentioned the fact that it was edgy, because for some people that, like, I found that absolutely spot on humorous satire. But again, there will be people that like maybe like yourself, that a different generation that think, well, no, I'm not used to seeing that kind of a thing, and it'll shock, and hopefully it'll shock people into looking and a wee bit more to see what's this guy, and in this case, Shorty Boy, what's this guy actually? What's the message he's trying to get out, and why is he trying to get it out? But I had to let. I thought it was humorous. I thought it was right on the button, and it was.
I'm not sure it was chocolate he was spreading with it.
Was the meant to look like it?
Well,
Can I come back to something that Charlie said?
Of course you can, Brian. Aye.
In terms of the SNP 1 and 2 and no one else, I think it's because they think the voting public are stupid, that their SNP members are stupid. I really think that's the only rational reason for doing that, unless it's deliberately to let in Tories instead of Alba.
To let them off a hook for a referendum in 2023.
Yeah. Aye, well, I think that, again, like, somebody that's no running for council here, I'm speaking like in this. She was in London, signing at the City of London, saying about the special relationship, signing books and everything else, where you've got Alex Salmond out on the independence trail again with a wee Alba book. I was going to say conference, not conference, like event after event at different places between himself and other members of the head of the Alba party as well. You've got Kerry McCaskill. I think Neil Hanvey was doing some, Tasmina Ahmed Sheikh. So you've got the party actually out campaigning for the council elections, but while they're doing it, letting everybody know that, well, we'll not stop them here. And something that he said in an interview, I can't remember who the interview was with, forgive me, about it will create the spark that Scotland needs for if Alba, when Alba breaks through politically and has their own councillors elected, followed by MSPs, MPs, and so on and so forth as we go forward. So I think it's an exciting time for the party. We're going to move on now because we've got Tories to talk about, right? I know, right? I know. I don't like talking about Tories either, right? But just like,
I'll get my mask on.
Have you got a Tory mask? Is that what you're saying? Oh, your face mask? Ah, right, okay. Right, so we're going to show, and again, this is because it's relevant to your area. This was, if I referenced the 6-chip Tory twat, would you know who that was? No, again, this is a Twitter thing. So the 6-chip Tory twat was Andrew Bowie, who posted up, and it's just for historical purposes, he posted a picture on Twitter, him having fish and chips, and there was about 6 chips, and somebody called him a 6-chip Tory twat, and it ended up trending on Twitter. Right, so there you go, Andrew Bowie. I don't like you. Right, so this was somebody that was supposed to be running for the candidate that used to be a staff member for Mr. Bowie. You may not have seen this clip, and I'll warn ahead of time that there is violence in this clip. All right, and swear words. It's just a Tory, as far as I'm concerned.
I'll close my eyes and ears.
And I will put you on your fucking ass. And by the way, when I put you on your ass, it would be a prelude to put you in a fucking grave, you little cunt. Alright? So, fuck right off. And I will put you on your fucking ass. And by the way,
I'm going to watch it again, right? But that's just a quick clip there. No.
That's an interesting way to canvas.
Yes. So that was something that was supposed to be running for the Scottish Conservatives, Scottish Tories in Aberdeen, believe it or not.
They're actually they're still on the ballot paper, but they've been suspended. So if they get in, then they'll be sitting as an independent, but they're on the ballot paper still as a Tory.
What's the name?
I can't, off the top of my head, can't remember.
Thanks for all that half a story there. Right. I was trying to find out his name. That's why I was asking Robert. I've been trying to find out his name for days. I don't like going onto Tory pages and things like that because it makes me feel unwell. So I try to go on it just for small periods of time, but I couldn't find the name of the chap. So that's why I was asking if you had it there. I'll go back into it after I'm trying to find the name. Right, we're going to move on and we're going to ask you a question now. Right, so this will return back to single view and it'll be back on a feature for you for each of you. So Charlie, we'll come to you first, mate. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So the question is really simple. What is a woman?
It's a very easy answer to a simple question. It's an adult human female.
Thanks very much. David, I'll come to you next.
Adult human female.
Robert.
What's a woman?
What's a woman?
It's an adult human female.
And Brian.
Yes, I would agree with that. Adult human female.
Adult human female. Right. So we all know what a woman is. That's cool. That's like, don't know. Like, David was talking about Keir Starmer earlier on. Didn't know what he was doing with this and didn't know what he was doing with that. No wonder he doesn't know what a fucking woman is, man. Right, we're going to move on to pretty much which will be what will lead up to the towards the end of the recording, guys. So it's a chance for you to say vote for me on the 5th of May, right? So Charlie, we'll come back to you first.
Okay, I'm Charlie Abel. Vote for me on the 5th of May because I believe in independence and I believe in the power of us as a people and the potential in us, and I love my local area here and I'll represent everybody's best interests, and I want to protect the local green spaces and I want to make a better Scotland. So independence and your best wishes will be at the heart of everything I do.
Thanks very much, Charlie. Good luck on the 5th of May.
Thank you.
David, over to you, please.
Well, my name is David Maitland and I hope you can vote for me on May the 5th. I've got a lot of experience at the top level of local government here in Aberdeen, and I'm also a Northfield and Maastricht man, born and bred. And I have a lot of contact and experience also in the local area. Independence for me is no longer a choice. We had a choice in 2014. We don't have a choice anymore, and that's why I'm a member of Alba and no longer a member of the Labour Party. If we want social justice, there's only one way we can get that. It's to vote for a party and to vote for councillors who are conviction politicians. They're convicted to help you, to help our local communities, and to take Scotland forward. We can't do it as part of the disunited kingdom. We can't do it unless we get an independent Scotland and we can make our own decisions. If we really want to have social justice in our communities, if we really want to care for those who are at, if you like, the unfortunate side of our society, then we have to have a party that's committed to the common people, me and you, the workers of our country, not the exploiters. Let's have a society we can be proud of once again. We don't have a choice. I don't have a choice. As I said before, we had a choice in 2014, but this year and for the foreseeable future, because I can see no difference, we have no choice. So for the 5.1% that it needs to change from a Westminster-dominated suburb to a nation who could stand and make its own decisions, right or wrong, but our own decisions for our own people, then you have no choice. Because there is only one party that stands for you, and that's Alba. And the reason for that is simple. You wanted representation before, and you were let down. You were betrayed. Your vote was abused. It was taken from you. You voted for a Labour Party who said they'd stand up for you. and what you need, and for the right principles and the right values. And what they did was get into bed with a Tory party. A Tory party that has cut taxes for the richest people in our society and made life for those of us who are the real people of our country, who are the backbone of our country, and who our economy depends on, the workers. So they treated us with total disdain, and I mean the Labour Party as well as the Tory party in that. And that's why I'm asking for your vote on May the 5th, because there's only one name on that ballot. There's only one person on that ballot who is actually really standing for you, who's working for the working class. And that's David Maitland, the Alba Party for Independence.
Thanks very much, David, and good luck on the 5th of May. Robert, over to you, please.
The Alba Party is the only party putting independence quite literally on the ballot paper on the 5th of May. It's an immediate priority. It's for the here and now and not the hereafter. To solve big problems like the energy crisis, like things like Brexit, to actually deliver a Scotland that we think is fair and responsible, I think we need independence. I think Alba Party candidates are standing on three main policy platforms nationally across the countries, but independence is an immediate priority, sending a message to the SNP. Because if you're an SNP voter who's apathetic right now, who's feeling disheartened about independence, lending us your vote at this election, we'll send that message to SNP that they need to get a move on with independence. We're also promoting our 5-point plan to tackle child poverty. It's a fantastic plan that makes a real impact in it, and it's a great start to start alleviate the pressures that are facing so many families across the country, and in particular in my ward. Things were hard before and they're going to get even harder. So councillors that are willing to actually put down a plan of what they want to do and not have leaflets filled with, quite frankly, vanity projects and fluff, I think is going to be beneficial to the city and to Scotland as a whole. And of course, we stand firm in our belief that a woman is an adult human female, and the concerns of women across the country should be respected. And when it comes, and I've heard a lot of people talk about how councillors don't have the power over anything to do with the Gender Recognition Act, and that's true. But so much of the impact falls under the remit of council. I mean, look at the biggest one is look at local schools. But any sports facilities provided by the council, any council facility will have single-sex designated areas, and it's been a problem across the country, but in particular in Aberdeen. I think down in Charlie's Ward Cove and David's in Northfield and mine in Tillydrone, there's been schools being built planning to have unisex toilets against the wishes of parents. And that's something that each party certainly won't be putting on their leaflets because it's deeply, deeply unpopular. So it's about vocalising those three key points. And I think if you agree with any one of them, in particular independence, fighting poverty or protecting single-sex spaces, then I think you should vote for me and any other party candidate on the 5th of May.
Thanks very much, Robert, and good luck on the 5th of May. Brian, over to you, please, mate.
Well, I'm Brian Allen, and I think you should vote for me because I'm determined that the folk in Tory and Ferryhill should have their say, and that say should be heard, and when it's heard, acted upon. And I'm determined that that is going to be the case. Now, in terms of independence, that can often seem to be like a selfish thing, that we want to break away so that we can be better. Well, we do want that, but I think that in the rest of the UK, when these nations see us making progress, they'll want some of the same. So we're not just doing ourselves a favour, but we are doing the rest of the nation a favour as well.
Excellent, Brian. Thank you very much, and good luck on the 5th of May. Right, so before we finish up, I'm going to put us all back on the screen for a wee second because I've got a wee screen share. This is a wee kind of us taking it easy now, right? So
Easing the squeeze.
Aye, we're easing the squeeze. Well done, Charlie. Well done.
Didn't I say that, Charlie? Chocolate. Oh no.
Right, so we can all have our mics open at this point. David, you can open your mic. Right, because we're going to. I'm going to ask like, something obvious. And it's. I'll do a screen share first of all. I want you to explain this picture to me, if you don't mind. And it doesn't. He's one. He's kind of.
I'm dreading what's coming.
Ah, it's all right. It's not bad. Not bad.
Oh.
Is this the usual suspects? Right. No, the question I wanted to ask, right, because there was something very visual that struck me on this. Was that
pink tie?
Well, no, it's not the pink tie.
Sorry, Robert.
It's not even having a tie. It's the 3 rosettes that I can see versus Charlie's wee badge.
Aye.
So, how did you know get a rosette, Charlie?
I have a rosette. It's here at home. I forgot to take it with me.
You forgot it, right? You
Aye.
forgot it. You
I was driving. I was driving.
I'm driving that night. Aye, very good. Right. So, you never got a rosette. Sorry, you did have a rosette. You just didn't have it way.
I didn't have it, my
Right. So, because the one thing that I noticed was that you're wearing a wee toty badge, right? But we'll do another wee screen share.
Can you find my wee badge?
Will you try to overcompensate the wee badge later on when you get this banner?
Oh, aye. Well, that banner, that's at my.
That's brilliant.
Aye. That's right facing the industrial estate. There's a roundabout at the industrial estate where most of the traffic coming into Kincorth from there, they hit this roundabout, and as soon as they turn the corner or come into the Nig, they see this, and even going down West Tillis Road. So, it's a fantastic strategic point for a sign.
Thousands and thousands of Aberdonians have seen that sign. Thousands.
Every day, every hour.
Yeah.
It's a great place. And if you look at it there, there's a wee sign saying
Sorry, mate, I'll do it. I'll share it again. Sorry, I didn't realise you were pointing to something there, Charlie. When you go.
I've got another wee sign in the windy, the house just above.
I can see that. I can see that up there.
Another Alba one here too.
Well, funny you should mention that. A sign.
Well done, Charlie.
Aye, smashing it. I'm going to ask you.
Brilliant.
Hold on. I'll get you back on. We'll put back on the screen. So, what size is your banner?
The banner.
This doesn't sound right, I don't know.
Now you're getting a bit too personal.
I said banner. Right, I said banner.
It's 3 meters by 1 meter.
Aye, it was certainly like it's one of these things. Obviously, this is a Twitter-based podcast and what have you. So I noticed that. I noticed these things, especially when it's got a saltire on it, or it's a Scotland flag, or it's relatable to independence. I noticed these things. So, and I thought, no comparing it to the size of your house or anything like that, but even against the house at the back, I'm like, that looks mad. I know that there's no been a Father Ted moment that one's close and that hangs far away, right? But it definitely stuck out. I thought, well, I need to click into that. So I says, we'll talk about your banner next week. Aye, and as David says, thousands and thousands of Aberdonians and people travelling to Aberdeen would have seen that. So it's all good advertisement for the party. Well, that's us finished up for the night, lads. So I'm just going to do the closing bit, which is saying good night to each of you. So Charlie, it's over to you to say good night first, then David, then Robert, then Brian.
Oh, thank you very much. I'm Charlie. It was a pleasure, and good night.
Thanks very much for joining us, Charlie. David.
Thank you.
Well, I'm delighted how this has went. I hope it was as enjoyable for the viewers as it certainly was for me. Being able to speak about things that are so passionate to all of us is always a joy. Before I say cheerio, I'd like to mention a couple of people, if I may. And the first is Gavin. Gavin is all our election agent. He's also the chair of our local LACU, and without whom we wouldn't be having what is hopefully a successful campaign. He's been there for us all the way through. He's been absolutely fantastic. So I want to mention Gavin, and I want to mention one more person, and that's Teresa. Teresa has been a rock, and she's been helping all of us during our leafleting and everything else, and has been nothing but encouraging all the way through, even when, you know, sometimes doing the hours on those streets can be quite tiresome. But her communications have been terrific, and her support's been excellent. So we have a great LACU here in Aberdeen, and if it wasn't for all our other members who are helping all of us out, then we wouldn't, well, hopefully get the success that we'll see on the 5th of May. And with that, thanks again. I'll see you again. And here's to a great May the 5th. Good night.
Thanks very much, David. Robert?
It's been great being on. There's a hat trick, I think, now.
This is a hat trick, good man. This is a hat trick.
I'll no doubt see you again. I'd like to echo what David said about Teresa, our organiser, and Gavin, our election agent as well. Fantastic people. What a help. But yeah, so thanks for having me on.
Oh, you're welcome, young man. You're welcome. And Brian?
Well, I can add to that. We've got a couple of folks that are down ill just now with COVID. So, but they're a good part of the team as well, and they'll be back up next week, I think. And it's just going forward. So it's good night from me, and it's good night from him.
Right. So you've heard for, as I term them, the Furryboots 4. I'll not tell you why I term them the Furryboots 4, because you might think it's because some folk in Aberdeen talk well a wee bit of slang. It's no, it's because I'm wearing furry boots when I created this poster. Right, there you go, wee secret. No, it's good night for Tweet Street. It's thanks very much to Charlie, David, Robert and Brian for joining us. To Gavin, to Teresa, as David had says, to Dawn, who's another name I'll throw in because I just see names as they contacted us, for putting us in touch with you guys and for making tonight happen. And it's a final good luck on the 5th of May for Tweet Street. I wish you all sincerely, from the bottom of my heart, I wish you all well. Hopefully I'm celebrating with you on the 6th of May as you are councillors, or at least from a distance. But it's good luck, and it's good night for Tweet Street, for the satirical saltire, for Cinnamon Bridges. Have a good one.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Cheers.
Hello, I just got a little bit of news about tonight's event. The university have received a number of complaints about the event going ahead tonight, as they believe it will threaten the safety or security of minorities at the university, and they believe it will damage the reputation of Aberdeen University. This kind of attack on the event has been kind of orchestrated by the politics and IR Society, along with trans activists at the University of Aberdeen. I'm deeply disappointed that the University of Aberdeen have caved to the pressures and caved to the free speech. But we're still going ahead. Meet us here at 7 o'clock. We'll be standing outside, good old-fashioned soapbox style speaking event, I guess. But as many of you to come along as possible will be fantastic. Thanks.